this is probably, the most important thing I can say on the topic. And there are a lot of important things to say about OCD. So if I'm saying this is the most important, please pay close attention. So the number one fallacy amongst therapists and patients is the idea that the thoughts are the problem. The idea that if I'm in successful treatment, the thoughts will go away.
Mm.
And as you just said 5 minutes ago, probably during one of your interruptions, you
You had to go there, Doc. You just had to inject that. Doc. I was sitting here calmly listening, and you had to say that.
you've been very naughty today.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the number one, are these in order, by the way, by priority?
Yes.
Okay.
Number one, stupidity in working with OCD is the idea that the thoughts are the problem. I have a very creative brain, and most of my patients' spike themes, the nature of their intrusive thoughts, my brain comes up with almost just as many, and many of them darker, according to societal standards,
Really?
than my brain. Sure. Not recently, but my brain used to play a video of me shooting my two little dogs. And I love my two little dogs. And yet my creative brain plays a video of me taking my scoped rifle. And I know I'm a Jewish New Yorker. I'm not supposed to have a gun, but you shouldn't be surprised. But I do. And it plays a video of me shooting the dogs.
It's your Second Amendment, baby.
Don't get started.
By the way, I love my dog. What kind of dogs are they?
I have a Yorkie, who's a teeny little thing, and then I have a Morkie, and the Morkie is twice as large as the Yorkie.
I love my dog. I have a Doberman. I love my dog to death. I dread the day that I'm going to lose him. But anyway, go ahead. So you have this video. You have this video of you taking your scope.
Is that I don't care that my brain plays that video. I don't care that my brain plays videos of me jumping off of balconies on a cruise ship, or plays videos of me stabbing pregnant women with large knives. I don't care that my brain plays these videos, because the brain is an entity that is in no way, it's a machine that in no way is a representation of our values and our priorities and our legitimate goals in life. But and so people with OCD have the exact same associations as the non-clinical population. It's just the amygdala links these very common topics, these very common associations, to the distress signal, and all of a sudden, these topics are no longer okay. And so it's really important that the patient and the therapist are really aware the goal of the therapy is not for the thoughts to go away. The second largest fallacy is targeting the anxiety. And so a patient might say, okay, well, I'm no longer thinking about, let's say, stabbing my children, but my brain is still generating this distress signal. The amygdala is still generating the emotional distress. And an interesting phase in successful therapy is that when you show the brain that its topics are irrelevant, the thought content is completely meaningless, it's very common that the thoughts in that area might actually disappear. My brain hasn't played a video of shooting my dogs probably in over a year, and I don't really care if it would come back. So with people with OCD, when they're very aggressive in doing exposure therapy and demonstrating that these topics are irrelevant, the theme will actually often fade off. But the amygdala is still generating its imbalance. And now the person still feels the distress as defined by, let's say, a rapid heartbeat, let's say dizziness,
tension,
nausea. There are many physical manifestations of anxiety. And so people, they think that, well, I'm not getting better because the anxiety is still there. So that's fallacy number two. And keep in mind that it's kind of like I always use the analogy of like weight loss. So let's say, Nez, that you're a world-renowned weight loss specialist, and a patient comes into you, and that patient weighs 300 pounds, and their goal is to weigh 180 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's their priority. Now, would you say to them, okay, your goal is weight loss? But the skilled clinician would say that losing weight is not the goal. The goal is to eat healthy, eat less, and perhaps exercise. These things produce the dividend, the desirable dividend of what the goal is. And it's really important that our goal be something that we can choose. If we make a goal something that we can't choose, we distance ourselves from it. So it's like, let's say you and I were on a sailboat together, and I said, okay, Nez, from the minute you step on this boat, you better be happy every minute. And so every 5 minutes, hey, Nez, you happy? Well, actually, no, I was thinking about my tax burden, and I wasn't happy. Like, uh-oh, we got a problem. So the goal is not the emotional system, like anxiety or happy, or even the thoughts, because these are things that we have no choice about. The goal is demonstrating that the thoughts and the anxiety signal are irrelevant.
Right.
And the way that the brain is wired, it's a beautiful machine. When we show the brain that its topics, that its productions are irrelevant, the brain is beautifully wired for those things to kind of fall off the radar in a very gradual way. And so, since they're independent systems and we can't control them, what we can control is our relationship with the thoughts, and we can control our relationship with anxiety. And the third most common fallacy in working with OCD is the idea that people are very, very confused in differentiating their brain voice from their gatekeeper voice. And
now, so for people who haven't read Choice, explain the gatekeeper voice versus the brain voice.
So people
just really, I mean, really quietly. Basically, if I let me do it, Doc. Hold on. So
okay, I'm gonna do it. So I'm walking in my living room, and I stub my toe on my coffee table, and my brain shouts at me, "You clumsy idiot!"
Instantaneously.
Reflex. You
didn't choose it.
I didn't choose it.
Right.
The brain says, "You clumsy idiot." Now, before I knew about brain voice and gatekeeper voice meaning the perspective that I hold and that I choose and that I believe in.
Your conscious voice decision, right?
The chosen conscious voice, right? So before I knew about this, when my brain would say, "You clumsy idiot," I thought, "Oh wow, I think I'm a clumsy idiot," because my brain told me that I was a clumsy idiot. I thought that was my deep dark truth. And if we don't know the difference between the machine and the tape and the association of the brain voice as being actually meaningless unless we give it meaning, then humans suffer a great deal. And
what did Shakespeare say? Nothing is good or bad lest the mind thinks it so.
I think the Stoics said that in Greece, but maybe Shakespeare stole it from them, because the Greeks, Stoics, said that a few thousand years before Shakespeare, or a few hundred years before Shakespeare. Anyway, so the brain voice is the reflexive mental associations that occur that we have no choice in the matter of. And so intrusive thoughts, like the video of shooting my dogs, or someone with OCD having harmful thoughts toward their family, this is total brain voice. And so when people would say to their brain as part of treatment, "Hey brain, I welcome your generating these thoughts. I'm giving you now permission, brain." The brain will bounce back and say, "No, you don't. These thoughts feel bad and you hate them." And then so like, "Oh boy, I can't do the therapy because I hate the thoughts." Rather than knowing that our perspective is our choice to say, "I actually accept the brain voice the brain associations, and even that secondary part that says, no, I don't, I'm lying to myself. And that's what I hear people saying all the time, is that they'll say, I welcome the thoughts, and then they'll be like, but I don't believe it. And I'm like, well, you choose. You see, we choose what we believe. But when people don't differentiate brain voice from gatekeeper voice, they're making that critical mistake to think that they can't, that their belief system is what their brain voice says. And that is the most difficult part of recovery for people, because they want their brain voice to be like, oh, these thoughts are okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I say they're okay, and you're going to agree, right? The brain's like, no way, these thoughts are horrible. You're a horrible person. And so that's what's so critical, is to understand that we choose what we believe, and our brain voice isn't the definition and foundation of those beliefs.
So to simplify that, Doc, if I may, the difference, how you distinguish between your brain voice and the gatekeeper voice is, it's almost like the petulant child versus the mature adult. Like the brain voice is sort of just responding and reacting and sending automatic signals, versus the gatekeeper is the one. It's kind of like that example you used in Choice, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doc. Viktor Frankl, you used Dr. Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a what did you say?
Choice.
Yes. Yeah. Am I on to something there? Petulant child, adult, or no?
Well, I don't.
How do you? What's a simple way of?
I agree with it, because let's take a songwriter, for instance. Many songwriters will say that they don't choose to create songs, that their brain creates the songs and it sends the song to the songwriter, and the songwriter's intelligence and instincts for quality will discern what ideas the brain sends as being
discernment. Yes,
relevant
discernment.
or not relevant. So yes, with OCD, you might see it as a petulant child, because the thoughts about the topics within OCD are all equally stupid. And I always say to patients,
oh, no. Let me be clear, Doc. I don't.
Hold a second.
No. Hold on.
Now, I say to patients that OCD's thoughts are stupid. The people who have those thoughts are not stupid.
Okay, but this is what I was going to say. I don't mean petulant child as in the theme or topic. I mean in its reacting spontaneously, automatically. You know, a child will just react, right? Like they see ice cream and they go grab it. They don't say, well, whose ice cream is it? Is it, can I buy it? May I purchase it? Right? That's what I mean. I don't mean necessarily, this is why, and I apologize. I actually wasn't trying to interrupt you. What I was trying to do is gain clarity. When I say petulant child versus adult, I'm equating the petulance with that brain voice being just so reactive immediately without any governance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in a way, the brain voice is like an AI computer that can generate its own independent thoughts. And some of those thoughts are brilliant, and some of those thoughts are extremely
unhelpful,
relevant and helpful.
Yeah.
It's up to the gatekeeper to, once again, discern, to pick and choose which of those thoughts we're going to give relevance to.
That makes sense.
Those thoughts are just kind of meaningless. So when my brain tells me to jump off the balcony of a cruise ship, I just sort of laugh at my brain. But when I first started looking at OCD, and it didn't make any sense at all that intelligent people's brains would be so self-destructive. Mm-hmm. It was actually my brain voice that, like a Rubik's Cube, it put pieces together based on my knowledge of neuropsychology, neurophysiology, and behavioral principles of the human condition. My brain took all of this data from my educational past and literally kind of just sent me these solutions to what was going on. Why would the brain do this? How does OCD actually work? And therefore, you can design a treatment, which I did, around the Puro form of OCD, whereas, as I had said, Edna Foa had already designed a very effective treatment for the observable ritualizers like hand washers or stove checkers or lamp checkers.
What do you think of this quote right here, Doc? Kind of talking about the gatekeeper and discernment. The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another.
Ultimately, I agree with that. Stress often comes from our trying to control events that are sort of out of our control, or to ruminate about mysteries or uncertainties that are impossible to solve. And so, where we face challenges in life and we're trying to get control over them, that can produce a great deal of stress.
It's interesting when you say, I love first of all, those three fallacies. I think everybody listening and watching is getting a ton of value from, because I think one of the number one kind of blockades for somebody who suffers from this, from leading a normal, healthy, whatever, fun life, is why can't I just get my brain to stop these thoughts? How do I stop these thoughts? I want to stop these thoughts. I never want to have these thoughts. And if I'm understanding you correctly, Doc, what you're saying is that is a fallacy. You're never going to stop the thoughts. The choice, the gatekeeper, the treatment, or the remedy is changing your relationship with the thoughts. So, for example, I love Zen and I love Buddha meditation and Buddhism, and Taoism for that matter. And so mindful awareness is this non-judgmental awareness that having the thought is okay. It's like watching a movie screen, right? Like you're in the audience and you're watching a movie screen, that those are just temporary. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase like thoughts are just clouds and you are the sky. The clouds come.
I was just thinking of that exact quote.
Yeah, like you're the space in which the thoughts arise. And so don't identify with some are going to be fluffy, some are going to be stormy, some are going to be cute, right? But it's not clouds are not the problem. The problem is you're identifying with the clouds. You're identifying with this as it says something about who you are. Why am I having a thought of suffocating, my brother next to me, or it's like that. Those are just creative associations. I feel like, Doc, why isn't this being taught in school? Like, as somebody who's an educator, this is a real tragedy in our society, because I feel like the Choice article is not just a sort of manual, I don't want to say help, but a guidance for this affliction. But I almost feel like it's a great way to live. Not let things get to you. Look at them for what they are. Be like, hey, I love thanks for giving me that. No worries, whatever. Okay, thanks for sending me that. I appreciate it. And just say whatever. No worries. Thanks for that creative association. I feel like a lot of problems in society, and maybe I'm getting too macro here, Doc, and just say, Nez, shut up if I am. But I feel like this is a great this is a great concept for living life and living and enjoying life. Am I reaching here, Doc, of not taking anything too seriously?
No, I say in the beginning of my Choice article that this is a guideline not only for the treatment of OCD, but for general principles of living life. So you're not overreaching. It's written right at the beginning of the article. It also says this is a call to arms. And what I mean by that is that I hate unnecessary suffering. I hate ignorance. I hate ignorance in my profession. And I hate unnecessary suffering. And OCD is such a catastrophic example of unnecessary suffering.
Yes, yes.
If we really understand what's going on with the broken machine, there would be no suffering. There would be anxiety, which is a series of symptoms the body and machine are designed to warn us of a danger, if we understand that it's just an imbalance and there's no danger whatsoever. I often ask my patients, what's the problem? And they'll say, well, I'm distracted. Anxiety is very distracting. And I'll say, many people look at it like distracted means no ability to concentrate, and not distracted means entire ability to concentrate. And everything in life is a continuum. And so we can still function with some distraction. And the more that we accept the variability of our focus, the more our self-correcting brain will be inclined to reset back to our default capabilities, but when we're trying to control independent systems, they just blow up on us, trying to control thoughts, trying to control anxiety. So, I would say
sleep.
Fallacy, I was just thinking that, but fallacy number 4, which is really painful, is that being anxious is a sign of weakness. I hate when I hear patients say that it's like, oh, I'm an anxious person, I'm so weak. You're an anxious person. You're not an anxious person whatsoever. You're a human being who has an imbalanced signal that creates an illusion that you're in danger when you're not. And you have nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's zero way a representation of your character, your emotional strength. And that's so sad. It's so painful that people interpret being anxious as a sign of weakness. I really hate hearing people say that.